Welcome to Cycle Breakers and Moneymakers, a podcast for women of color and first gen who are breaking generational cycles and glass ceilings by going places no one before them has ever gone. I'm your host, leadership coach, and eldest daughter of immigrants, Mariela De La Mora. I left a 16-year marketing career to create a multiple six-figure-a-year coaching business as a single mom. Each week, you'll learn how to build unshakable self-trust, become in demand, lead with confidence, and make more money by being more of who you are. Hello, you guys. I am coming to you from, in all honesty, day 3 of taking care of a sick kid and being a little behind on podcasts and all the things, which is really, really telling me like, hey, here's an opportunity to practice what you preach and say that you need a better system for this because we can't like rely on week to week output, especially when you're a parent and things happen, right? So I'm just calling myself out because sometimes you can know the answer and not be doing it. I literally coach on the answer and I'm not doing it, right? So, and really what I would love is just to be like, oh, I've just recorded these podcast episodes. We've repurposed them into emails or we've done this and like it's done rather than like this week to week catching up thing. And I'm starting to find myself in that. And then all it takes is her getting a cold. My daughter, who's 8, she's downstairs right now. All it takes is her getting a cold. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, here we go. Like now there's going to be a backlog of stuff, which means I need to change something on my end. So if that is you, I am volunteering my story as tribute to tell you that just because you know the answer doesn't mean you're actually doing it. Where do you know the answer and you're just not doing it and why? So part of what I'm doing also is calling myself out to my coach so that I am not just hiding out in my inaction, right? So please call yourself out to your coach if this is you in any regard. It probably is. So what I'm going to be talking to y'all about today is if I were restarting my business in 2025, what would I do? What would I do the same and what would I do different and why? And this will be relevant for you even if you've been around for 5 years, right? Because it may show you what are some of the things that you did from day one that you're like, oh, that was ahead of my time. I was ahead of my time with that. And other things that you're just like, ooh, I notice I'm forcing myself to continue doing this just because it's what I always did, but I actually don't want to do that anymore. And maybe it's not even the best ROI of my time, right? So I'm sharing this because at any given point, we need to be looking at why am I doing what I'm doing? Would I keep doing it? Does it make sense in this market? Does it make sense for my life right now? Does it make sense for who I now am? Because you are a whole ass different person than you were when you first started your business if you've been around. So sometimes what we're doing is kind of like we are holding our past selves like against ourselves and trying to make ourselves be a certain way when literally like we actually need to change. So I wanted to talk about that because in the last 6 years, like I started my brand May 2019. May 2019 is when I started my brand because it was the month that I joined my very first coaching program. It was called Knowledge Business Blueprint by Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. I paid $2,000 to join this program and it had a Facebook group. And I joined that Facebook group and you better believe I was like, I want to know as many people that are like joining programs as like starting businesses as possible. I just want to build this little bubble around myself of other people who are also asking themselves the same questions and like also growing businesses. And like, I don't even want to talk to like my friends and family about this. I want to build what I used to call my little Delulu bubble. I was like, I'm going to build this little Delulu bubble because I know that I want to leave the workforce and I know I'm going to be leaving a big payday in the workforce. I'm not somebody who like left and like wasn't making money because I think that's a different motivation because then you're just like, well, I can see that like I can only make so much money. I actually left a big payday, right? But I just knew that I couldn't be a single parent the way that I wanted to be and be in the workforce. So like at the time, there were a lot of things that I did that I'm like, wow, that's the reason that I was able to create the sort of results that I did. But at the time, I don't think I fully realized that until now. So I'm going to be sharing some of the things that I would do the same. And in many cases, the things that I would do the same, I would double down on even more now because they're even more important. And I will tell you why. And I will also share the things that I would do differently because in some cases, it's just like I'm a different person, but in some cases, it's just because it's 2025 and not 2020 when the majority of the world was home and they were connecting with each other on social media because they couldn't have those same opportunities to connect in real life. So literally the world has changed. And it is very important that as a person and that as a business owner, you also change. You have to change over time. If you force yourself to do the same thing all the time, not only are you not going to have, you're going to have a hard time, but like your business is also going to struggle. Like part of what we're supposed to do is check in with ourselves, right? So what I will say in this episode is I'm going to share what I would do the same from 2019, 2020, what I would do differently based on what I've learned and or what is happening in the market now, how I see things in the business landscape changing over the last few years. So like these are the reasons why I would do things differently, and just kind of talk to you through some of those things because you may see yourself in some of them. So here is number one. Here's what I would do the same from when I started my business 2019 to now. Even more so, I would build a brand before building a product. If you've already built a product and you've already built a service, fine. But the brand may be missing. The brand is even more important. So, what I mean by the brand is, what do you stand for? What are your stories? What are your philosophies? What are your beliefs? Having some sort of vulnerability, transparency in there somewhere. This doesn't mean like airing out all your dirty laundry. If you're a service provider, you don't have necessarily a touchy-feely business. It depends. You might. I have some service providers who don't have a touchy-feely business and other ones who have a much more emotional business. But things like people know who you are, right? You as the founder. That is important because now more than ever, because people want to know who is like the person behind it, either the person they're going to be working with directly. What are you about? Like values matter more now. So building a brand is important. So you may have a service, you may talk about problem solution, you may be selling, but you may not have a brand. Like when I go to your website, or I go to your social media presence, or I go and I read your emails, do I know something about you? Or are you just preaching? Are you just talking? Are you just teaching? Are you just doing problem awareness? Do I know anything about you? What you stand for? Is there any level of emotional risk? There should be. There should be some level of emotional risk where you are sharing something that is real, that is about you. So building a brand before building a product. So part of that, like I said, is sharing with your story, your values. Another thing that I would say helped me build a brand early on that I would do the same is I always kept a certain person in mind, no matter what I was teaching, no matter what I was talking about. So even if I was talking about brand positioning, whatever that was, I always imagined a person that I kind of had my arm around, and that was Daughters of Immigrants, right? So having that person in mind will help you think about when are you talking about something and then you need to contextualize it for your people, right? It's like, oh, wait, my people might actually have some thoughts about this, or this might be especially hard for them because of this. Having the same type of person in mind will really help you build a brand because those are the people that are going to be seen and feel seen by you in your brand. So it's very easy to just lead with the service and what you do, but keep a certain person in mind. I would almost imagine in me, like I'm actually doing it now, of like my arm is around them and they're walking with me, and I may be talking, I may be teaching, I may be doing problem awareness, I may be doing all the things, but I'm always thinking like, ooh, might they have some thoughts about this? And I just ground it for them. And I just think about them and everything I do. That's another way you build a brand. Another way you build a brand, again, build a brand before building a product, build a brand early on. Part of how you do that, I invested in a photo shoot early on before I ever had an offer. And lots of people have been in business for a while and they've never paid a photographer. I absolutely would say, look, I know that whether you want to be authentic, whatever, you can still be authentic and do that in a professional photo shoot, right? This doesn't mean being all stuffy or anything, but it's just like paying somebody to take your pictures so that you can just show people who you really are, so that you look as polished as your expertise is, right? So that they match. Um, and that's just one thing that I did before. And the other thing that investing in a photo shoot did in terms of building a brand was that uh, it helped people to see me. Well, helped people to see me as the expert that I was, even when I didn't have a lot of like quote unquote coaching experience. But it also helped me to see myself as the expert that I was, because when you get those photos back, you're like, wow, that's me. Like, that's crazy. Like, you see it and you're just like, oh my gosh, like I'm a professional. Like, this is me. It raises your own identity. So there's so many ways for you to like make more money and just elevate the way that people see you and your brand through a photo shoot. So what I would do the same is I would build a brand, share your story, invest in a photo shoot, keep the same person in mind, and just take some emotional risks. Tell people about yourself, let people in. So I would build a brand. That's what I would do the same. Another thing that I would do the same is I would anchor into my thought leadership early on. What I mean by that is, instead of just problem solution, instead of just niche, think about what is the unmet need that I see and that I speak for and that I solve. So whatever your field is, what do your people consistently kind of like wherever they try to solve a problem that they haven't fully been able to solve that you can solve? So it's almost like this little slice of the market that you are able to solve differently because of who you are. So talking about why that unmet need exists, who experiences it, what they've tried to do that hasn't really served them, how do you help them? You can talk about your own story, how you even realized this was important, why you stand by this. Like, this is just really you advocating for someone who is experiencing an issue or experiencing this unmet need, and you're advocating them for them in your marketing. So I would encourage a thought leadership early on, not just problem solution. Another thing that I would do is the same and even more important is I would create community early on. I would seek it out and intentionally try to shift the people that you're talking to on a regular basis. This I would do the same. I would say I don't know that it's more or less important than it was back then. I think it's just as important, maybe more important, just because of like what's happening in the world right now and how many of us are feeling unsure, collectively grieving, angry, all the things. Like, we just need community now more than ever. And I would say like our friends and family are super important as well. And I also think that entrepreneurship can feel really lonely if you don't have somebody that understands your brain. It's so important. And so when I say find community, it's almost like people look at me like I have three heads because they're just like, yes, but like how? Different ways, right? At the time that I started my business, I literally joined groups that had, like, I joined programs because I on purpose wanted to be around people who were also asking themselves the same questions that I was asking myself. I used to say, like, I just want to build a little Delulu bubble around myself of people who are also building something. I had no evidence at the time, so I knew that it was super important that I wasn't out here sharing all of this with friends and family. Not to say that you can't, but I was just like, are they really going to understand? This is a little crazy. I need to go and actually find people who are also doing this and also asking themselves these questions and also taking these sorts of risks, right? So I built community, me being able to build community early on in 2019. This was pre-pandemic, right? So this isn't even like, oh, people were just seeking more community because it was a pandemic. This was before. This is actually what made me believe that I could do it. When I had no evidence, literally crazy that I could do. I was already like planning my 7-figure years like back then. It was wild. Like, but it depends which rooms you're in, right? So I was paying at the time. I joined a program called Knowledge Business Blueprint. I paid $2,000 to join that program. It had a Facebook group, and I was working that Facebook group, y'all. You can't just join a group and then not reach out to other people and not share openly on calls, right? And like, that's, the community is not just going to happen. It doesn't matter. You have to make it work. So sometimes what I find is people join communities and then they don't share and they don't let themselves be seen in it, and that's why they don't create connections. So you have to let yourself be seen in it. So like, I was literally like inviting people for coffee chats one-on-one, and I was like openly sharing in the group, and I was being vulnerable, and I was supporting other people, and then I was supporting them offline as well on their social media. Like, you got to go and actually go build connections. You can't just join the group and then not do it, right? So that's another thing that I would do the same. So the three things I would do the same: build a brand first, lead with thought leadership versus just a niche, and I would build community. Okay. So here is what I would do differently in 2025. Whew. I wish I had grew my email list. I wish that I had talked about it and like actually invested my time in growing it and actually emailing people in it, because I'm still finding that it's hard to build the habit now because I was so social media first for so many years. And now I'm finding like the way that it works is when you have warmer leads, they will follow you on social media, and then they will take other opportunities to get closer to you if you allow it. So if you have a podcast, they'll listen to your podcast. If you have an email list, they'll be on your email list. Even if they don't read all of your emails, they just like want to be on your email list. And because I didn't do that until like 3 years in, until I was launching, now I still feel like I'm reversing the way that I think. Instead of let me hop on IG stories first, I'm thinking, let me outline a podcast first and writing emails, because it's just more sustainable. It's just the way that I want to run business. And even if you like showing up on social media, it's just not sustainable. So what I would do differently is grow my email list early on and actually email people. That's one thing that I would do. Another thing that I would do differently is change the way that I invest in mentors. And I don't regret any of my past investments, even the ones that I was like, damn, like it put me kind of in a deep financial pinch, or the ones that I literally charged on credit cards. And I don't regret them because they all taught me something. But what I will say is that for a long time, I think I invested in mentors based on I wanted their results. And I don't think that that is a bad reason. I just don't think that that should be the main reason or the only reason, right? Because there's just a whole lot more that happens between a mentor having a result and you being able to have that result as well, I think that I now ask myself different questions of like, is it a 7-figure business or is it profit and calendar space and how I feel and doing meaningful work and how, how I, all the things, right? So I think I now just invest differently. I look at like, what are their clients' results, not just their results? Do I see myself in their clients? Do I see that their clients have also overcome something that I, struggle with, or a lack of privilege that I also have? Because a lot of the times, you think about like who experiences big results in business, it's easier, to be honest, if you have like a financial backup plan, or you have a spouse that can pay all the bills if you couldn't, or, different things, right? Or if they don't have kids, like there's so many different things. So I look for mentors who have had to overcome some sort of lack of privilege, because then I know that they can help me through my own, even if we have different privileges, right? So this is why I love learning from women of color, because they have had to, if they're a woman of color, right? And their clients as well. So that's what I would do differently in 2025 that I already do differently, is I would shift the way that I invest in mentors, not just investing because they're promoting their results or you want their results. It's also who they've helped, what their values are, and have they had to help people navigate absences of privilege, because that's going to help me feel like you can help me with mine. So that's the thing I would do. I would grow an email list early. I would invest in mentors differently. I also would say that in 2025, I would invest more time in like creating a presence outside of my own platforms on purpose early on. So this means being on people's podcasts, speaking at events, speaking in, other people's memberships, in-person events, things like that. And I didn't do that in 2020, and I wouldn't change the way that I did it, only because at the time, and I actually was, I did speak and I was on people's podcasts, but I wouldn't change the way I did it, but I would change it if I was starting now. I wouldn't change the way I did it, which is just Instagram. I was just on Instagram and I used to sell a lot on stories, because it was a pandemic and people were seeking connection on social media. So it was just a different market. Again, I wish I had grown my email list, but now I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put all my eggs in the social media basket. It's just not like stable business to do that, because number one, you may not even be getting in front of the right leads. So like you're just kind of hoping in the algorithm that they'll find you. And I think that the more niche the audience is, like the more you need to go and be on other people's platforms to try and get in front of your people. I always would say, ask the question, where are my people at right now? Where are they at? What organizations are they part of? Do they listen to podcasts? Do they go to certain events? Are there professional organizations that exist that they might be members of? Ask yourself those questions. Are they part of membership groups? Where are my people at? Just ask yourself, where are my people at? You could, if you help people that are like you, maybe you were part of some of these organizations, or maybe you could ask some of your clients, like, where else are they plugged in? Because this is going to show you where you need to also be visible. That isn't just social media. The thing is that especially if you serve a client who may not even necessarily be shopping on social media, you may just be having a really hard time. Like, number one, if you are wanting to be seen by organizations, you should not just be posting on Instagram. If you're marketing to folks in their career, probably makes sense for you to be on LinkedIn and also be just outside of your own platform. So that's what I would do differently, that I wouldn't change the way that I did it, only because of who I sold to and it was during the pandemic, but I would change it now. And another thing that I would do differently in 2025 is I would prioritize evergreen content over short-lived content like Instagram stories. Evergreen means you create it and it's always there. Post something on the feed, you record a podcast episode, people can find it years later and still listen to it, over things that expire in 24 hours. And the reason that I would shift that, I would shift it even back then, to be honest, because again, it's like a behavior flip of you may spend 2 hours on Instagram stories and then it expires in 24 hours. Even if people do go find you there, they only find you there because that's where you are and you train them to go do that. If you train them to go and you say like, I'm sending emails about this, and you're not putting everything on stories, because sometimes you're writing something on stories and I'm like, that could have been an email. You know what I mean? So at least repurpose them if you're doing that. Again, I'm somebody who thought very much Instagram stories first, and now I just like don't have the energy. I don't have the desire. I just don't want to do that. I like going on there as like a happy bonus, but like, yeah, that's another thing that I would flip. So what I would do differently, start an email list and grow it, invest in mentors based on alignment and more factors beyond just their own results. I would pursue visibility off of social media more back then. And I also would prioritize evergreen content over things like Instagram stories. Okay. So that being said, how the business landscape has changed in the last few years. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So, one thing that I will say is very, very different is people are shopping with their values more than ever. They're looking for reputation. They're looking for, have you been consistent with that? Are you living in alignment with your values more than ever? Like people are literally like now they're like boycotting. And so we're seeing the effects of if people are not aligned with values, they will shift the way that they spend. And this can look like a lot of different things. One of the things that I would say that I'm seeing more now is that while there is a lot of uncertainty because Trump is unfortunately back in office, there has been a genocide in Palestine for a year and a half. We have seen constant layoffs everywhere. There's just so much of like uncertainty and letdown and collective grief and just so much that people are looking for voices that they can trust, that are willing to like stand on business when it comes to their values. They're just looking for a voice that is grounded amongst all of this to help them see things differently. And the work that you do doesn't even have to be quote unquote that deep, but like for you to see your people on a deeper level right now really matters to them, even if the way that you are seeing them doesn't necessarily directly correlate to your service, but like people are really looking for thought leaders right now. Like they're looking to be seen by the people that they admire and trust, right? And this is really that time. So that's one thing that I would say is like, yeah, people are shopping with their values, but they're also looking to be seen right now. So I would also say with investments, right? I think that nothing is true across the board, right? But because of the widespread effects to the economy, especially since this presidency, when people are slower to invest, it doesn't mean they're not investing, right? It's just that their criteria has changed. So if people are a little slower to invest and they're a little bit more cautious right now, one thing that I would say, and I literally just coached about this last week in a mastermind that I'm in because a lot of people are kind of seeing variations of things, right? Is that right now, how is it that what you offer to your clients, how can that put them in a different place forever, not just in the short term? So people are thinking about if I'm going to invest in this, how might I be in a better position ongoing in other areas of my life? And I'll explain what this means. So rather than selling information right now, we really need to be selling and talking about how is the client going to have a different identity? How are they going to have different skills? Because identity and skills are things that the person will always have. So yes, they may have deliverables, but how will they be forever changed as a result of working together? How will they see themselves differently? What will they know that they will always have? That's more important because when you think about a person in their mind assessing risk, they may be thinking, well, what if this doesn't work? Or what if this isn't the right time? But if you can show them the person that you're going to become through this experience and or the skills you're going to have or the systems, it could also be systems. You may come in and identify gaps for someone, right? So let's say if you're a consultant, you may not be helping someone with identities or skills, but you may be helping them identify gaps or creating systems, right? Where they're going to be permanently in a better place as a result, then they start to see more upsides as a result of this. They're like, well, there's so many upsides to this because even if this doesn't work out because of that, like we actually could fix this, or like, oh, I may be in a better position for this. So that's what I would say is, how does working with you put your client in a better position in other areas as well? What long-term benefits might there be? What ripple effect or residual benefits might there be? That could be related to how they see themselves, their identity. It could be related to new skills that they learn. It could be related to new systems that you help them build that they're always going to have. This could be related to gaps that you're going to help them identify right away where there's like leaks, something happening that you can go in and help them fix. So like really that is important because you want to help them see. It's almost like you're helping them mitigate the risk in their minds of something that no one can take away from them. Because I think that when you're in an economy and in a time where you're just like, well, my rights are being taken away, and like, I'm worried about my immigrant parents, and like, now I'm worried about my job, or I'm worried about the clients that I serve, and like, their funding might be taken away, or their funding was taken away, or like, my clients are worried about them losing their jobs. So like, they're not investing. Like, there's so much of that going on right now. So this is where, how does working with you put them in a better position across the board in multiple areas of their life, of things that they might have, things that they might be worried about, especially if they're investing from the perspective of like, is it this or that? Right? Do I invest in this or do I invest in that? Or do I do this now or do I wait? Like, you really now, and not, I'm not saying make up stuff. You got to stand on it. You have to believe in it. But like, now this is the time where we're selling something from a deeper perspective. Okay. So selling the long-term value over the short-term value is definitely something that is different in 2025. I would say there was for sure a time for me and for many people I know where we were just throwing money at problems and like all the things. And I just think when people feel a little more secure, that's what they are doing. And so what I will say is that how you shift in this market is going to make you so much better at what you do. It's going to make you better at articulating how you help people. It's going to make you better at marketing and selling. So if it's feeling a little harder, it doesn't mean people don't care, that they don't want it. It just means you're being called to rise in how you talk about what it is that you do, because this isn't going to be the first time. This isn't going to be the first time. If you want to be in business for the rest of your life, I've witnessed many, many, many shifts in the economy and in the world that affects how people buy. If you're going to be in business, you're signing yourself up to figure this out, right? So that's what I would say. How does working with you set them up for the long term, not just the short term? What are all the residual effects? That's another thing that's different. Another thing that I would say is different in this market is I'm gonna call this like we got to get out of like selling. I don't know if it's like hype, but like selling from the perspective of like, I'm living the dream now, and more into like authentic leadership. I'm like, move out of living the dream land and move into authentic leadership land. Even if you are living the dream, this doesn't mean don't be in gratitude over the things you've created. That doesn't mean lose sight of the miracle. Never lose sight of the miracle of what you've created, right? Especially if you're still in business, congratulations, you are literally already defied the odds if you've been in business for several years. But what I mean is, people don't want to just hear like, I'm just dreaming, like I'm just living the dream, and that's all you're talking about. Like, they want to know how you're actually navigating tough things, because that's what makes them believe that you can help them too. And I think sometimes like we think that we have to sell from that place, and maybe we saw that for a really long time, but people know you're not always winning, first of all, right? Um and it creates believability issues for your clients when you're only talking about winning. Like, they really want to hear you say, here's where I struggled, or here's where things didn't go well. And even if you aren't a business coach, I mean, like, if your brand is about authenticity, or if your brand is about expression, or your brand is about taking risks, like, where might you be able to embody those, right? So depending on what you do, even if you're a service provider and you're not a coach, even if you're, and whatever that is like, or if you, let's say if you are a stylist, you should also be talking about where you don't feel confident in your own body or your own clothes, or times that you saw yourself, or you got made fun of, or you felt like you got anything. Like, the people want to hear something. Or even struggles now where you're just like, gosh, like I'm supposed to help people feel confident in the clothes that they wear, and now lately I'm noticing that I'm whatever that is. Like, they want to hear a story from you. So that's what I would say, is not just telling people how you're living the dream or being in a place that feels like perfection. People would rather hire the person that embodies what they help their clients with versus someone who tries to perform perfection. So that is what helps people feel safe with you and feel like you understand them. And I'd say, yeah, like, final shift that I kind of talked about earlier in 2025 is just deeper vetting of mentorship. People are looking beyond that mentor success story, beyond, what they're doing. They're looking at, how has that person helped someone like me? Has that person, helped more than just the same 3 people? Have they helped people who lack certain privileges that maybe I also lack? Because then that means you may be able to help me too. Just really they're looking deeper than that. And so I think that if you invested from a more superficial standpoint before, like I think all of us just kind of have to like, I don't know if the word is forgive yourself, but just look at that and say like, okay, you wouldn't never have had new criteria had you not invested the way that you did before. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? So to recap, in this episode, what I would do the same is build a brand before building a product, or build a brand period if you haven't already. And that's with sharing your story, leading with vulnerability, investing in a photo shoot early on, and keeping the same person in mind even as your offers evolve. What I would do the same is thought leadership. What's the unmet need in the market? How do you fill it differently? What are your beliefs around it? What's your story around it? Another thing that I would do the same, build community early on. Go find like-minded people. Go actually talk to them. Go be vulnerable. Go share your story. All those things. Collaborate early and often with people. Go build community early on. What I would do the same. Now, what I would do differently, start an email list and actually invest in growing it and actually sending emails. I would pursue offline visibility, not just put all my eggs in the social media basket. I would also prioritize evergreen content, not just 24-hour expiry content like stories. It just gets hard to get out of that habit. And what I would do differently now is invest differently in mentors. And how the business landscape has changed over the last few years that is affecting why I'm giving this advice is that right now people are looking for reputation and values and consistency more than ever because of collective letdown, because of we're seeing just oppressive systems come in and essentially go and take over, and seeing things that we didn't actually think that we would see. Some people saw this coming, right? But essentially we're seeing things that are really just rocking a lot of people's senses of security. And so right now your brand reputation and your values matter more than ever. Even if people are slower to invest, it doesn't mean that they're not investing. It just means that they are looking for voices that they can trust, and they're looking for, how might this investment put me in a better position in the long run? How might this put me in a better position in other areas of my life, not just this one? So that's super, super key. How does the investment in working with you actually set them up in other areas of their life? We don't want to make this up. We want it to be obviously something that you actually believe and put to the forefront. Another thing of how the business landscape has changed is that we are looking for more authentic leadership, not necessarily living the dream, like, oh, I'm sitting here living the dream. Like, no, people actually really want to see how you're navigating difficult things. And finally, selling the long-term value, not just the short-term value, which I alluded to before, which is like, how do you put yourself and your clients in a different position permanently, both in the sense of how they see themselves, in skills that they're always going to have, and in just solutions that are going to continue paying off. So that is it, y'all. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot that is happening, but if you are in business, you're just signing yourself up to just solve new problems over and over again. It doesn't mean that, like I said, it doesn't mean that you can never get back to, maybe if you feel like you had a level of success and now it's feeling a little bit harder, or if maybe you are starting to take your business and say like, okay, I'm going to have my business be a little bit more of a priority because I haven't the last few years, and is this the right time because like, look at everything that's happening. If you can solve the problems that are sitting in front of you right now in what is happening in the world, you are going to be in such a better position at the end of this. I really truly believe that, because not everybody like stays in business, right? Not everybody stays in business, which is also why I don't advocate for people quitting their jobs right away. Like, I really just think like, create security in whatever way that you can, and know that those of us that make it through a difficult season, economy, in your life, or whatever's affecting you, like, you're going to be so much stronger for it. So just know that. And we don't need to make it mean anything about ourselves, but definitely get support, because it is so much more difficult to observe and solve your own problems when you're the only one looking at them, because they feel so unsolvable, so personal, all the things. But I hope that this helped you. And if there's anything that really stood out to you, send me a message, send me a DM, and I would love to hear from you. That being said, if you know that one of these are you, or several of these are you, and you really want to set yourself up with a solid foundation this year, and you're like, this is the year, or I've been sitting in the same problem and I'm really tired of it and I want Mariella's help, you can go to my website. Right now, I have spots in May for private coaching. So that can look like us meeting a variety of once a month, twice a month, really those two. I'm not really doing the weekly anymore, except in certain instances. Like if you don't have a business at all and we're starting from scratch, I'll do weekly coaching, but I'm really mostly centering folks who have some sort of an existing brand or business. Those tend to be the folks that are kind of like my sweet spot. So if you have an existing brand or business, and even if you haven't touched it in a while, right? Or you are just looking to have a creative co-partner and like helping you solve problems, build a, stability, and just help you feel more confident and in control, understand like what really makes you different, and really lead with it, then go to my website or reach out to me on Instagram. I have a link there where you can apply. You can pick one of the coaching options, but I would highly recommend if you already have a business, we could either meet once a month or every other week. I have lots of clients in the every other week, and it works really well because it gives you time in between calls for us to talk on Telegram, to coach there, answer questions. I will go through your brand and your business and I will help you identify gaps, all the things. And then you've got me on text and voice memo for just anything that comes up, mindset, beliefs, questions, all the things. So that's it. I will see you guys next week.